Dulos. Det er december. Det er jul. Vi skal op. Vi skal op.
Jul?
Ja, det er. Og vi skal ud på eventyr.
Juhu!
Ja.
Vi skal ud på eventyr.
Eller ind på eventyr.
Ind i eventyr.
Ind i eventyr.
Ind i eventyr.
Okay, so I'm sitting here with Bertram and Florian
Cramer. Yes.
and we've been told to interview you about
Neoism, as it seems.
yes, which we know nothing about.
Yeah. But then we should flip the whole situation. I should interview you about Neoism because it's better if you don't know anything about it and you just make it up.
Okay, yeah, that's good.
Yeah. So, yeah, tell me about Neoism and your experiences with Neoism.
I think I'm a quite skeptical person, so I think I'm quite skeptical of Neoism and how it makes the landscape of artistry so meta in many ways, and like how people get very overly self-conscious in this neoistic kind of art stream. That's what I wanna say, I think.
Do you share this opinion?
Well, I think personally that if you have to ask what someone thinks about Neoism, then you already missed the point of Neoism. Neoism is something that you don't really ask questions about. It's more of like intuition-based way to go. So yeah, I think that the people walking around asking other people like, "Oh, what is Neoism? What is Neoism?" They aren't getting the point. Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's good. We should end it here.
No, we shouldn't.
No? Okay.
I don't think so.
Okay, so what do you want to add?
I want to ask, you came to the restaurant where we met the other day.
Yes.
That was not the first. Was that the first time we met?
I think so. I think so. Yes. I think
It was actually, yes, it was at this Surinamese restaurant. And you are a professor at Willem de Kooning Academy here in Rotterdam. And Goody asked you, our friend asked you, how is it going? And it seemed like it wasn't going that well at Willem de Kooning.
Yeah, and is that a good thing or is it a bad thing? Because my secret is I think I'm more anti-art. I'm more like an anti-art person. So you could say I'm at an art school working with other people of undermining the whole kind of concept of art.
Yeah.
And specifically, you could say art is something that was actually the Western invention of the 19th century.
Yeah.
So our work is basically to kind of to deflate or take down this invention. But this now is happening by management. So they're gonna fuse the school with IT school.
With an IT school?
Yes.
That seems kind of crazy for some, but for you it feels like it seems good.
Yeah, that's the question. I'm not so sure about it. Yeah, because you could say that's like, it's like what probably Elon Musk would also have done. If he would have been.
But in many ways, I think Elon Musk is in some ways on the right track. But not in the way that you might think. But I think like post Elon Musk will be very nice. Mm-hmm. Like because I don't like the way he does stuff, but he is doing the things that artists maybe want to do, but in a way that is.
I would say I would say, and I
Do
even
you get what I mean?
yeah, no, totally. In fact, I even wrote a text on this together with a friend of mine,
Yeah.
Nienke from Fucking Good Art here in
Yes.
Rotterdam, and we said basically what people like Musk or Millet are doing. They are kind of reenacting the early 20th century avant-garde, especially futurism. You know?
Yeah, definitely. Like Jules Verne almost kind of thing.
Yeah, no, Marinetti. It's more like Marinetti,
Marinetti.
yeah, and Russolo, etc. So it's really, you know, the performances with the chainsaws and so on.
That's true.
Yeah.
But that's yeah.
And for example, there is one interesting or not so interesting person in Silicon Valley. He's a major kind of figure in Silicon Valley. He's an investor, so he's running a kind of how do you call this? A hedge fund that invests into startups, and he was before that he was the CEO of Netscape. When Netscape was a browser company in the 1990s, Mark Andreessen, and he wrote a manifesto on his website.
The guy who created Netscape
Yes,
wrote a manifesto.
yeah.
Wow.
But
that
he's
was the first like big browser.
It was the first big browser, but now he's a kind of venture capitalist, and he's the biggest venture capitalist in Silicon Valley, and basically has his money in all important startups. And he wrote a manifesto, and he's also an advisor of Trump. So he says also he spends half of his time at Mar-a-Lago in Florida to advise Trump.
That's quite scary.
Yeah, and he wrote a manifesto that is called the Techno-Optimist Manifesto. You can Google that, Mark Andreessen.
Techno-optimism is a subject very interesting to me.
Yeah. And he also believes, of course, AI is the big next thing of human culture, etc. But in this Techno-Optimist Manifesto, he has a whole list of names of people that are for him like the saints of the techno-optimist movement, and then he has also Marinetti and the Italian futurists in it.
Yeah.
So
those were kind of those were kind of controversial guys.
Yeah.
The futurists.
Yes, and you could say actually, if you read the futurist manifesto today, and it's more than 100 years old, then it reads like it was written today by the Trumpists.
Yeah, I read it in high school. It was very energizing to me, but also very harsh. Like if you're a sensitive guy, you kind of get also scared by it.
Yeah, but it also has this kind of anti-art rhetoric, which is interesting. So it says, we should tear down the museums, but then it's also super right-wing. The Italian futurists, they were part of Italian fascism.
Right.
They were close allies and friends of Mussolini. And then you also say, so for example, we should destroy all bourgeois culture, we should destroy feminism, we should destroy the museums, we should destroy the academies, etc., etc. And now this is happening, right? This is now happening, but maybe it's not happening in the way we thought it should happen. So that's a big question.
But where do you stand on like being anti-art? Are you with the Trumpists in that regard, or like?
Yeah, I would say generally, politically, of course not.
No.
But there's one overlap. So the Trumpists already in the first term of Trump were very much with the alt-right invested into meme culture, and to say that actually meme culture is perhaps more significant than 99.999 what you can see at a contemporary art biennial. Yeah. And I think it's a similar situation that you also had in the 19th century, because everything that we now think was the art, the modernist art, etc., was completely outside our art, was completely outside the system, and we have a similar situation today, and I would say that the memers are now the ones who are outside the system.
Yes, definitely. But do you still do you think that contemporary art still has a place as like a framing ground of these things at all?
I think it's losing. I think contemporary. My personal theory is, with contemporary art right now, in this very moment, the same thing is happening that happened with classical music after 1950.
Right.
You're probably familiar with it because you come from experimental music, but you know that like contemporary composed music, Stockhausen, Boulez, all these people, Cage. Back then it was called, especially in Europe, it was called new music. That was a coinage by Theodor Adorno, the philosopher, but this coinage was with the idea, composed music, Western composed music, that's music.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
everything else is, I don't know, popular culture,
And
but it's not
only-
real music. Yeah.
Only the
And
Reformation was.
Yes. And the whole system back then, with all these composers, was still working on the assumption that we represent music.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that is now, that's now so over. Yeah.
Yeah,
of
yeah,
course.
yes,
That's completely. That's an idea that is 50 years old or older, and everyone knows that this was a delusion, and that this is no longer the case. Nobody would even make an argument for that. Except maybe if you are Helmut Lachenmann or one of these guys. But this is like, maybe there are still 100 people in the world who would claim that new music is the contemporary music. But in contemporary art,
Yeah.
we still where composed music was in the 1950s.
Yes.
Yeah. So the contemporary artists, the white cube artists, the ones who are in the system, who are in the biennial system, etc., in the gallery system, they really still think we represent contemporary art.
Yeah. But
like we represent new music.
then it's a very paradoxical point to be an artist right now. You think so?
Yes, I think so.
And how do you see this role like?
Yeah, see, now we come back to the kind of neoism that I was a part of.
Yeah.
So already in the neoism is a shit word, and the guy who invented this was also not very bright. But one of the things in neoism was that people would use collective pseudonyms.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't use your own name. So work wasn't identifiable.
Yeah.
And you would also make no originality
Yes.
claims. Yeah. So
Yeah.
you would, for example, advocate plagiarism or
Yes.
even censorship. So it doesn't matter. The other thing was also back then, and it was a little bit also came from a kind of leftism in the time. Already in the 1980s, say we don't use the word artist. We use at best the word cultural worker. Yeah.
Right.
But yeah. So and there was. Actually, there was one slogan used also in neoism, which was also plagiarized. Everything was plagiarized, and the plagiarized slogan was "Demolish serious culture."
Demolish theory as
demolish serious culture.
Demolish serious
Yes, culture. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
And that was actually taken, but that was plagiarized. It was plagiarized by kind of fringe action in 1960s New York Fluxus.
Yeah.
It was George Maciunas and Henry Flint. And I think also Namonte Young, the composer.
Yeah.
There was a concert by Stockhausen.
Yeah.
And they did a boycott action and a picketing action with flyers.
Yeah.
And it said, Stockhausen represents Western imperialism and Western high culture. And then Demolish Serious Culture was, they had this as a banner. Then they stood in front of the Lincoln Center, the concert hall, and said, boycott Stockhausen, demolish serious culture. And it was also back then, so the person who wrote that manifesto, Henry Flint, also said, it's also a protest because Stockhausen gets this recognition as this kind of highbrow contemporary composer and gets invited to New York to perform in the Lincoln Center, but at the same time, and that was in the early 60s, I think it was in 1964, there is no institutional recognition, for example, for jazz, for black music.
Right.
So there is systemic racism. He was quite advanced, and actually Henry Flint is a close friend of my best friend in neoism. So John Bert, who I don't know, maybe you even know John because he's also in.
I don't, sorry.
Yeah, he's also an improvisation musician, and actually he played with another saxophone player who also played here in Coffee and Ambacht, and Jack Wright. They performed together, so Gilbert knows him, but John is a close friend of Henry Flint, and because Henry Flint is trained as a philosopher, as an academic philosopher, and John published most of his writings actually. So there are these lines, There's, I think, I also had to think of Fluxus when I witnessed your performance today.
Yeah.
So,
but how do we escape? Like, how do we escape this? Like, concretely, what do we do? Do we become carpenters?
Yeah, that was a proposition in Fluxus. So George Maciunas basically, I mean, few people know the history of Fluxus. Most people think, oh, it was like an early performance art movement, a little bit Dadaist and a little bit chaotic. But
Yeah.
actually, Fluxus, also the term was invented by a Lithuanian exiled architect and graphic designer, George Maciunias. So was basically he came up with that, and everyone who worked with him basically was Fluxus. And George Maciunias, he was a radical communist, but he was weird. He was like an entrepreneurial communist. He always had this idea: I create something like a startup, almost like the
Yeah.
60s, that will create a kind of communist business model for us to survive. And his first idea was, artists should stop making art.
Yeah.
They should have normal jobs, like carpenters.
Yeah.
And the only thing that we will sell as arts will be like little objects that can be produced in editions, like in multiple copies.
Right.
Yeah?
But
And
not
so-
like
mass-produced.
not mass produced, right?
Semi-mass produced, like normally like an edition of 100 or something like that. Yeah,
okay,
but the idea was it should be super cheap. You should be able to buy such a little object for like
Wow.
Yeah.
batch production.
yeah, like this. Yeah,
I
or-
really like this
yeah.
idea.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
is such a cool idea because
Yeah.
I like items so much
Yeah,
like
and,
this.
and his idea was also to run then the group as a publishing house.
Yeah.
And the idea was, and this is a little bit similar to Neoism and giving up your name,
Yeah,
that the artist should sign over their copyright to the collective,
Yeah.
and then all the objects that would be sold would be anonymously sold under the name of Fluxus.
Right.
Yeah? So no signature. So here, yeah.
Leprechaun beer.
That's us.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
sure. Thank you.
So
So it's to kind of like work against Unicas.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, and collector art, and he even wrote a manifesto where he said, we have to break with Western culture, we have to break with the art system, and we have to invent a new type of culture that is art amusement, and it should be accessible by all and should be made by all. Yeah.
So they want to make art enjoyable.
Yes, yeah. But also break down the kind of barrier between high and low culture, and says
Yeah,
that it should be something popular, but still experimental at the same time.
So kind of like a human right.
Yeah, no. But in his case was also he was really interested in kind of developing a future or utopian society. So he also had these kind of collectives. So for example, he had the idea of buying an island in the Caribbean,
Yeah.
Ginger Island, and making it Fluxus Island, and that it would be a kind of commune that everyone could live there. Also his artist friends, even John Cage. He wanted John Cage to live on
yeah.
that island, and so. And this island was actually for sale back then through a real estate agent. And so he flew there with a number of artists. And one of them, I think Yasuno Tone was part of it. You probably know him. A Japanese experimental musician who also later worked with glitches and destroyed CDs, etc. Yeah.
I think I've read about him
Yeah.
in like glitch.
Yeah. He was an early glitch artist, but he was also part of Fluxus in the 60s.
Yeah.
So they traveled to this island, and the realtor dropped them on the island, and by the way, who was also part of this trip was Robert De Niro.
What?
Yeah, and he filmed it.
He was.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because actually Robert De Niro, the actor, is Robert De Niro Jr. and his father, Robert De Niro Sr., was an abstract painter in New York.
Ah,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah, so he had this connection. So back then he was still not known as an actor or was
No,
a student. So, but he was friends with the Fluxus artist. So he took the trip. Yeah, and then the thing was, they were also arrived there in the evening. It was very late, and then there was a kind of tropical thunderstorm with lots of rain, and they just slept under the trees.
Yeah.
And of course, Maciunias hadn't taken any provisions, hadn't organized anything, so
Yeah.
they were also like panicking, how are we going to survive here on this island?
Yeah.
And then they woke up in the morning and they were all blind. Because,
Blind.
yes, because the trees on the island were poisonous, and through the rain, the kind of poison had trickled down, and the
No,
flow.
no, permanently blind.
No, not permanently blind.
Oh.
But yeah,
Oh
yeah,
my
but
that
but
must have been such a wild experience.
yeah, and they needed to be rescued by like a ship that was nearby or something like that. So, and later then he also tried to build a kind of living community in New York. So he got 2 houses and he made it the Flux House Cooperative. And his idea was to, make a kind of co-op where people could almost live for very little money and have this also as a kind of communist business model. And that didn't really work. I mean, he also had health problems and died rather young, I think in his 40s, in the 70s.
Yeah.
So, see, I'm now deflecting. I'm not talking about neoism. I'm talking about fluxes all the time.
No, but that's all.
But neoism exists without fluxes.
That's a good question.
Like
That's a good question.
historically.
Yeah, it's a really good question because the person. Yeah, I'm not making this up. So the name was invented by a guy that I know very well, Hungarian, exiled Hungarian Canadian, I could say singer and performer or performance artist. But the kind of prelude to that is then in the aftermath of Fluxus, you had a lot of kind of self-organized communal countercultural art, especially in North America. And one of the people was an artist called David Zack. And David Zack, he taught at an art school in California in San Jose.
Yeah.
And in 1969, actually, there was a website on this. It was like a
CalArts.
no, a very small one,
Oh,
like
okay.
San Jose State University.
Okay,
So
okay,
they had a small art department, and he was a professor there. And so this whole idea of these artist communes was really a big thing back in the time.
Yeah.
And in a way, I see also, the Goody Pearl collectives in this tradition. And so he had the idea of taking his students, to a study trip to Italy, but for like half a year.
Yeah.
And but then he arrived with them, and when they arrived in Italy in this village where they had somehow rented a house or so in a really small mountain village, he said, "Yeah, you know what? We don't have any money. You have to figure out how we're gonna survive this half year." And according to his students, he was like non-stop on LSD, on acid, the whole time. Yeah. So later they created a website. It was the village was called Monte. 1969. And called there was a website on this. I think it was called montecapano.org, because Monte Capano was the village where they camped.
Okay.
And it was really like a kind of trauma processing, all these students who had been traumatized by being basically by this hippie professor, But David Zack was then also traveling later in Europe and meeting István Kantor, the Hungarian artist who back then still lived in Hungary, and told him something like, off the cuff, "Oh yeah, you should come to Canada," and he took that literally, Oh yeah. He was behind the Iron Curtain, it was not so easy to get out of Hungary, so he actually did this. And back then, David Zack did another thing. He created postcards where he said, I think the concept of the pop star should be democratized. There should be an open pop star. So I'm sending out postcards that people should adopt the name Monte Kensin, and
I think I heard about this.
I've heard
Yeah. Definitely, I heard about this.
So you and everyone should be
Like every big pop artist should just be Monte Carlo.
Yeah, or everyone. And then the
Everyone
idea is basically you share the fame. So if you want to have a gig, you can just go somewhere and say, "I'm Monte Kensin," and you will be the famous pop.
Nice idea.
Yeah. And that was the beginning of neoism. So neoism was based on Monte Kensin, basically. But it was only one guy, this Hungarian István. He was the only one who really took it seriously, but maybe too seriously. That's the problem.
Right.
Yeah. He still tries to be a pop star today, after after almost 40 years.
It's like funny in my mind. All these ideas, because I think about a lot of these things too. They always somehow come back to, like, I have like this idealist vision of theater, because for me, like for a theater, you only need a stage, and a stage could be anything, and all these ideas can come together.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a romantic thing, but I just feel like it's the answer to every every question you could ask about, like every like anxious question you could have about how to be an artist and how to be anti-art and all this. You just make theater.
Did you ever read the novel America by Franz Kafka? It was his last novel. It's a fragment.
Yes.
And it's a very funny novel. And the funny thing, it also plays in the USA, but Kafka himself was never in the USA himself, so it's kind of like completely fictitious USA. And in the end, it's about it's the story of a young guy who comes from a rich family, but got I think his the maid, the chambermaid, pregnant, and so they send him out. They kick him out of the family and send him to America, where he basically needs to survive.
Yeah.
And then he gets kind of lost. Yeah, it's basically this kind of whole story of getting lost and traveling from A to B. And in the end, there's this kind of utopian scene with the theater of Oklahoma.
Wow.
Yeah, and so maybe I can look it up. So at some point, when he and his friends are traveling through the USA, they find a billboard.
It says the Theater of Oklahoma.
Yeah, and it says the following. Let me see.
I really want to hear this.
Yeah. Let me see. I have to find the text because I want to really give you the original text from the novel. Yeah. Here. Personal is being hired for the theater in Oklahoma. The great nature theater of Oklahoma is calling you. It's calling you today only. If you miss this opportunity, there will never be another. Anyone thinking of his future, your place is with us. All welcome. Anyone who wants to be an artist, step forward. We are the theater that has a place for everyone. Everyone in his place. If you decide to join us, we congratulate you here and now. But hurry, sure not to miss the midnight deadline. We shut down at midnight, never to reopen. Accursed be anyone who doesn't believe us.
This is like the childhood dream, I think.
Yes,
Like
yes,
it's
yes,
like
yes.
the dream, like when you're 12, 11
Yes.
years old, and you're like, wow, it's only tonight, and it's like, wow, this is beautiful.
Yeah, but isn't that also the
Yeah,
your collective?
yeah.
Aren't you trying to be the theater of Oklahoma?
also-
Maybe it is, and maybe I didn't figure it out yet.
It's also like a textbook scam.
Yeah. Of
That
course,
is
yes,
how
yes.
to make a scam.
Yes,
you
of
have-
course.
There's a deadline. You have to
Yeah.
leave your life.
Yes,
behind,
yes, of course.
And also do it now. Don't
Yes,
think.
yes,
You know?
That's
yes.
what makes it the dream, because
Yeah.
if that's real, that is like
Yeah.
paradise.
Yeah.
Kind of. It's
Yeah.
like the Bible or something.
Yeah, and that is Kafka is playing with that. He's
Yeah.
playing with. He was Jewish, and he's playing with Jewish messianism. So the idea
Yeah.
that there might be.
Yeah.
There might be redemption. Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
like a redemption fantasy,
Yeah,
of course,
yeah,
but also capitalist. I mean, it's like capitalist redemption. It's like also business model, and
Yeah. That's true. That's true. It's
Yeah.
very funny, actually.
And I have this. I told you about David Zak and his commune, and I mean, I know people from Neoism who knew him personally and said he couldn't really stand the guy. He was terrible. He was basically a parasite. He would
Yeah.
he would travel from place to place and basically leave behind a lot of unpaid bills, and then travel to the next place and stay with people,
Yeah.
without being invited for like half a year until they kick him out.
Okay.
And then a friend of mine, actually he was also in Goody Pal's exhibition at the National Gallery, tentatively a convenience. He said, yeah, he found everything that David Zak made as art shit. There was only one piece that he respected. I mean, he made a collage of all the kind of letters he got from the how do you call this? The companies,
Groups?
No. The companies that try to track you down and that you pay your bills.
Oh, like debt collectors.
Yeah, the debt collectors,
Yeah.
exactly. So So he basically made a giant collage of all the letters that he had from debt collectors, and he also he died as a scam artist because he was the son of two classical orchestra musicians,
Right.
and they died I think in the late 1980s, but he kind of he didn't tell the authorities and continued to cash in their pension checks.
Yeah.
But he lived in Mexico at the time, so he was also trying to create a kind of artist commune in Mexico. And then he was caught and he died in a Mexican prison because he had severe diabetes and was not properly treated in the prison.
Oh, that's crazy stories.
Yeah. But you know, I have this fascination because it's like an archetype of these kind of 1970s commune experiments, and there's a whole film genre also of kind of exploitation and horror and sexploitation films that play in these communes where people then die. For example, one by an Italian one, Eventyret, so being 20 years old, and it's about two teenage girls who also then end up in a kind of post hippie commune where they eventually murdered. But there's also a Danish film, which is not trash, which is like art house, and that's Idiot.
It's so fucked up because I've never watched that movie.
But it's exactly about that.
Yeah.
It's exactly about that.
It's
Yeah.
a really good movie.
Yeah.
It's it's about that.
Yeah.
Nice. I'm a huge fan only of Lars von Trier's early work. So, and my favorite one is Riget.
Yeah.
And only the first season, not the other ones.
Yeah.
And my school where I work is exactly like Riget.
It is?
Yeah. And
That's cool.
my hero, my favorite character in Riget is Krokschai.
Who is
Yeah.
it? Krokschai?
He's the assistant doctor.
Who
who lives in the hospital
Yeah.
and makes his own kind of deals in the hospitals.
Yeah.
But he's also the father of the kind of father, the replacement father of the satanic child.
Yeah.
So he's my role model for my job.
When you're teaching at an art school, right? And then if you're all the beliefs you have around art, do you see that it has to be some kind of rebellious act to teach at an art school? Or how do you like navigate the two? It seems like very polarized in some kind of way.
But in a weird way, the art school and I are a good fit because first of all, we have 2,500 students, and of these 2,500 students, only I think less than 60 study fine art. And even the fine art department that we have on the bachelor level now calls itself the fine art. And says we're no longer educating people for the art system, so that's fine. I don't. Yeah. But it also has to do, it has to do with the fact that in the Netherlands are a country that basically also gave up on contemporary art in the 2010s. They slashed the funding, but there's also almost no collector's market. So I always say, or with colleagues, we speculate that there might be only 5 artists in the whole Netherlands who can live from their work.
Seriously?
Actually, from let's say, of course, you can count in like if you get government subsidies or if you get teaching jobs, okay. But just living from the art market, probably not more than 5 artists, maybe even less. We thought maybe only 2 artists, only Marleen de Meltmas and Joep van Lieshout. Maybe they're the only ones who can actually live from selling their work. Yeah.
But do you believe that artists should be able to live off of being an artist? Like, do you think that should be a living?
Yeah, in what I'm trying to do also with friends of mine who are close to Coffee and Ambacht, also Gilbert knows them as well, and Goodiepel as well, is to kind of rethink that, to say, well, for example, your art practice can also be to run this place here. That's what Gilbert does.
Yeah.
He's actually he has a background as a fine artist, but this is actually his art practice here.
This is a very nice place.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
him coming out with the
Yeah.
soup in his little clothes. I
Yeah.
mean, it's
But it's also, this is here is one of the most, you could say that's probably the poorest neighborhood of the Netherlands where we are right now, especially where we are. And
here.
Yeah, right here. And
Whoa.
and it has a lot of social problems because there are a lot of kind of Eastern European labor migrants here, and it's known to have like the worst housing conditions.
Okay.
So there are a lot of kind of scam landlords here, and people live in small apartments, with I don't know 5 people and paying insane rents, etc. Because they have some jobs in some some online distribution center or something like this. So there's a lot of exploitation going on, and also a lot of people here who have, for example, mental health problems, drug problems, etc. And Coffee and Anmacht is also a little bit like a, you could say like a social work or like a neighborhood center. Yeah, a soup kitchen. Yeah. It's pretty much that as well.
Nice.
Yeah. So, or another one around the corner is Varia, which is also a space that was set up by former students of us who came from the Pizzwat Institute media program, where also Goody Pal used to be a guest teacher now and then. And that's basically, this is something like a neighborhood critical media lab, which also helps people, for example, installing Linux on their computers or stuff like that.
Cool.
Yeah, but they're also, in the art system, for example, they're doing a lot of stuff in the Fediverse, running Fediverse servers, and also did this for Documenta 15.
What is Fediverse?
Fediverse is like
That's
open
like the
open source social networks that are not owned by companies but are community run. So that can also be a practice that you can have, or you can. Another example is a community run, volunteer run library, public library here in Rotterdam, where also a lot of people with artist backgrounds or art practices are involved in running this. So, and that's something we try to kind of also push or promote a little bit at our art school, that we say, well, it shouldn't be that at the 4 years at the art school you build up this kind of fictitious artist portfolio, and then after your graduation you actually really find out what you want to do, like for example running a place like this one. But this should already happen when you're at the school, and you should already learn about this. You should already be around, learn from these existing practices. And in a way, that's also quite close to the idea of Fluxus. That's also what Machunas, or even someone, I'm very critical about him because he had this guru attitude, but in fact, Joseph Beuys did the same thing. Joseph Beuys was also part of Fluxus. He was a member of Fluxus. And when he was had an art professorship in Düsseldorf, his idea was, well, he said, everyone is an artist, but not in the sense like everyone is a fine artist or is a gallery artist, but it was more like, well, if you're a nurse, then being a nurse is your art practice, right? Yeah. Or if you're a cleaner, then being a cleaner, that's your art practice, and that's why he opened up this class. He said, so if you are a nurse and you want to study in my class, you can go into my class, and I won't have any entrance exam. So, but as a result, there were then hundreds of people studying in his class, and then at some point it was a similar conflict as with Goody Pal, as his conservatorium. The management of the art school in the 70s said we're not tolerating this getting out of hand, and then there was even a kind of battle, and I think he left the art school because of that. And then he founded his own school, his alternative school called the Free International University. And so I see a lot of these things coming back also, in the kind of things that for example, your collective does.
What is the name of your class?
I don't have a class.
You don't have a class?
No. So, but actually, a close friend of Goody Pal, me, and also Gilbert Reinhardt, he had a class that he called the Also class.
Okay.
And his idea was a little bit, he's a really close associate of the Indonesian Ruang Rupa collective.
I don't know.
Yeah, they were the curators of the last Documenta in Kassel. So
okay.
yeah, but got into a lot of trouble, of course, because their approach is also community-oriented and non-institutional, or different. Let's say it's not non-institutional, but imagining institutions to work in a different way.
Yeah.
And so what he learned from them was to say it's not about alternative art. Yeah, it's not about you have an official system and you have an alternative system, but it's an also system. Yeah. So it coexists. So also his class was open to anyone. Anyone could go there, even if they were not students of the art school.
Cool.
And they came, for example, they came up with the idea of a student-run. Yeah, they called it the food station, basically like a cafeteria. That would replace the commercial cafeteria that we have at the school.
Yeah.
And which should also be a place for collectivity, communality, experimentation with food, etc., etc. Of course, you know, this idea has been existing now for I think 7 years, and we're pitching it to management, and they always say no.
Yeah,
yeah.
Can-
so that's like, no, this is where I'm coming from. It's like kind of rethinking of what can actually be, your practice. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Can you tell a little bit about, if you know about it, the Goodipel's teachings when he was a teacher at the DM? Like, do you know anything about it? Because he won't tell.
Yeah, I mean, I only know it from a little bit from rumors. What I know is that he very early on brought in artificial intelligence as a subject, but he told his students not to compose with or with the help of artificial intelligence, but for artificial intelligences.
I heard about that.
Yes.
Was his early work too.
Yeah.
That it was like that was radical computer music.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yes,
what it
yes.
was, but I'm still wondering what a class might have been like.
I have no idea. You have to ask.
Okay.
Probably
he
like now.
I only know
he
the
won't tell, man.
Yeah, I only know the Banana Scholar because I've been I was a guest teacher in it twice or 3 times, I think.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
In Copenhagen.
In Copenhagen.
Oh, yeah.
Mm.
Wait, no, you and the guy who talked about like drugs and stuff, right? No.
Mm.
Yeah. Okay. Well, do you have anything you want to ask?
No, not other than thank you very much for being willing to answer some questions about your practice, about your thoughts about these things.
Thank you.
Thank
Do you
you.
have any advice to the young people who wants to get into the fine art academies? Because a lot of young people are working so hard to try to get in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that this was a problem of the previous collective of Goody Pal and Pals, that there were a lot of people who then basically took it as a kind of entry, yeah, and we saw that at you know, with the kind of projects and research we were doing at Von de Koning, and I thought, well, that's exactly the wrong way. It should be the other way, actually, that you have been in this art system, and because you know it, you decide to do something else. Yeah. Gilbert is a really good example. I mean, he was a gallery artist. He still has a gallery in Rotterdam, but he's no longer active in that. And at some point, he decided, no, that's not what I want to do. And so maybe this is a problem if, you know, I don't want to sound like patronizing, but it could be also a kind of matter of age and biographical experience. Yeah. I mean, of course, it was the same. You know, you're young, you're 19 or 20 or whatever. You first want to go in, you want to get into the system.
Yeah.
And then once you get into the system, you see how the system sucks and you want to get out of it again. Yeah. But if you first go to the outside of the system, you rather see it as a kind of your opportunity to get into something that you otherwise would not easily get into. Yeah.
But that takes way more courage actually,
Yeah.
because then you haven't.
You don't have protection.
You don't have any more like you don't have any experience with that feeling of this isn't the right thing. So you have to rely on your instinct way more and your intuition about these things. Yeah. So that's it takes a lot of courage.
I must also say I had that myself. I mean, I can totally understand it. So when I was like 16, 17, I also had a phase because I grew up in this kind of 1980s post-punk DIY culture, which I'm a little bit older than Goody Pal, maybe like, I don't know, 5 or 7 years or so. So I experienced that, but then it was like, you know, you go from punk and zine making, and I mean, I was never interested in punk as in music. I always found the music super boring, like boring rock music. And then you see the more interesting experimental post-punk stuff, and from that you go into free jazz, and from that you go into new music. At some point, I sold all my records, and I was only listening to Stockhausen and Cage, etc. That I think at age 17 or something like this, and that is maybe the kind of typical biography that you have.
Yeah, like
And then it takes you maybe another 30 years until you realize actually, there was actually some value in all the post-punk records that you sold. Yeah. And I think that's a little bit like cyclical. And you
definitely.
you also see things, or you see things in the stuff that you kind of sucked up or perceived, or that influenced you when you were younger, and then you're seeing it with different eyes when you get older.
But of course,
you see other qualities in it. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
So for example, now I find John Cage very boring, and I find him for me John Cage is a kind of crypto-fascist actually.
I see what you mean in some ways. Yeah.
It's really the problem of kind of pretending to be an anarchist, but using that as a kind of power.
That is
Power
one of the most scary things.
That happens all the time, of course. I mean, if you're in political activism, that happens all the time.
Yeah.
It's like passive aggressive, So
Oh, yeah.
I think John Cage is super passive aggressive.
Probably.
Yeah. In some ways he is, but in other ways he's just like a mischievous little bastard. But not in a passive aggressive way, just in like he wants to provoke.
But he also has this kind of new ages kind of his fake Zen Buddhism. I mean, actually, I only went to a couple of evening lectures. He never seriously studied it, but pretended to be like this serious student of Zen Buddhism. I think nowadays I'm more aligned with Erik Satie as a composer. Because he really had this kind of super weird humor and and eccentricity.
He also had some wild ideas for his time. He predicted so many crazy things, at least like some fundamental crazy things, like in the ambient and constant music as furniture, right?
Yes. And also the Vexation, which were actually part of his face. Few people know that, but he was associated to a guru in that time, in the 19th century.
Really?
Late 19th century, and his name was Josephin Péladan, and he was a Rosicrucian, or self-declared Rosicrucian.
Really?
But the point was, let's say the original Rosicrucianism was actually Protestant, but he was a Catholic Rosicrucian.
Kind of occultist, of, right?
Yeah. I mean, the Rosicrucianism, you can even argue whether it really existed. So in the early 17th century, there were a series of 3, you could say, manifestos or declarations, published text that kind of and were announcing a kind of spiritual revolution through the so-called secrets by the Rosicrucian Brotherhood, but it was pretty much made up. It was pretty much a fake thing that was produced. But then there were and still are organizations or Freemason-like organizations that called themselves Rosicrucians, and one of them was the Rosicrucian Order of Péladan in Paris, the Catholic Rosicrucians, which Satie was associated with. But what cracks me up is Péladan was 200% Wagnerian. He was a hyper fan of Wagner. Yeah. So and he also composed operas. So his idea was to basically build this kind of Rosicrucian temple that would be also a
like an opera house.
Opera house, and would have his own operas.
The theater again.
Yeah.
Really idealist New Age also maybe.
Yes, but then have Satie as his composer. So he wanted Satie to compose like Wagner, which of course was a total misfit. And Satie composed this opera. It's called Le Fils des Étoiles, so the Son of the Stars.
That sounds cool.
Yeah. The libretto was written by Péladan, and I think Satie called it a Wagnerian fantasy. Yeah, that's the official subtitle. Yeah. But the music is absolutely non-Wagnerian.
No.
Yeah. So I like this kind of complete misunderstanding. Yeah.
I think there's like still Rosicrucian organizations all around, like weird websites also in Denmark and stuff where you can.
Yeah, no, they still exist.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Cool.
all right.
Thank you so much.
Okay,
Thank you so much.
you're welcome.